For analogies, generally speaking, parents, they want the best for their children. And so God is the perfect Father. Of course, He wants the best for us. Anyone else?
Big thing. Big thing. Like for what's big thing for us is really small for me.
Yeah. There's actually a really nice passage in the Bible where it says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" It's always a good reminder. It's nice. Anyone else? Are you no? No. All right. Cool. So I thought we would just break it down into 3 separate parts of how God views, how He sees. And the first is love. The second is that He views from a viewpoint of faithfulness. He seeks faithfulness on the earth. And also, in really difficult moments, He seeks our response in a genuine way. And often that is with a personal dialogue with Him. So we'll get, I guess, into the nitty-gritty of these 3 things as we go along. But the first is, how does God view humanity? This should be the ABCs of Christianity. This would highly likely be the most famous verse in all of Christendom, which is John 3:16, as you would know. And I'm sure many of you can say it without even looking at the screen. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish or not die, but have everlasting life. It's always important to remember that, because sometimes the viewpoint people can have is, for God so hated the world that He gave His Son to judge the world and all that. That can often be the mentality a lot of people carry around, but that's not correct. So even the Lord Jesus Himself says, "I did not come to judge the world, I came to save the world." His primary reason for coming was not to judge, it was to save. And so it's important to keep the primary things, the first things first. And the first thing is that He views humanity from a viewpoint of love. That's how He sees us. This was the Sunday school verse, I think, that many of us got to know, which was, we usually learnt it as just 3 words, which was, hi Buna, which was God is love. But the bit before it is really important. From the Epistle of John, chapter 4, verse 8. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. So the fact that He is love means the way He obviously views humanity is from a viewpoint of love, because if that is who He is, then we can't separate love from God. God views humanity from a viewpoint of love. Hi, Luna. Good to see you. Oh, yeah, that's thanks. Oh, thanks. Good to see you. Is everyone happy with that point, or does anyone disagree? If God is love, then we can't separate that He views humanity with love, because that's who He is. It's impossible to separate love from God, because He is love. This, however, I'm not sure how many of us considered this particular passage in the Gospel of John, but we see that Jesus links the fatherhood of God to someone directly with loving Jesus. So he's speaking to the Jews and he says this. It's in the second to last line if you can see that. Jesus says, "If God were your Father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God." If God were your Father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. So God being their Father was directly linked with their love for Jesus personally, which is always a good reminder, because in the beautiful church that we live in, we have so many things that would reinforce that we are close to God. But the closeness with God must be a closeness of love, not just a closeness of attendance. It's actually a love for Jesus. Do we love Jesus? I feel like I'm going to get very sick of my voice, so Naomi, you're the closest to me, so you might be like a reader, like every now and again. So if you could read Pope Schnoder's quote.
Any action far from love is far from God. God takes from each virtue the amount of love that is in it. If he finds no love, he casts it away completely.
Yeah, so there's two sides to it. So God is love. He views humanity from a viewpoint of love. But then when he views, the way he sees and what he looks for is also love. So it's not, oh, God is love, great, he loves me, like that's the end of the story. But because he is love, that's actually what he seeks in humans as well. He seeks if we have love or not. And that's why Pope Schnoder was very blunt about it. He's very sharp in this quote. Any action far from love is far from God. God takes from each virtue the amount of love that is in it. If he finds no love, he casts it away completely. I find this passage very unsettling at times, because I believe, like as servants in the church, I'm sure, we've all served in some capacity, even if it's nothing too formal, but there's so many services. It'd be really, really sad if we're 93 years old, and then we come to the end of our life, we think we've been serving a lot and stuff, and then we're expecting a reward from the Lord, and then he says, on earth you really did in 97 years 2 good things. Well, 2. They were the only 2 times you actually loved when you served. The rest was just, so people see me, so people know I did it, so I could cover for this guy, but I really don't like the guy. Stuff like that. It'd be really it's like a waste of energy almost. Of course, I don't know if that's, going to be the reality at the end of the day, that, he says, oh, you've only done 2 things in 97 years. Hopefully not. But it's just a reminder that what we do with love. And it's that very nice passage that we have as well in Scripture, that all that you do, be done with love. Does anyone have any comments on that? Or anything they want to add or subtract? What is done with love is done well? Yeah. Who said that? That's very nice. Yeah. I like that a lot.
It's me.
So I won't read it word for word, but you guys know this passage very well, which is, it's actually a passage that we read in Holy Week about the woman who breaks the very costly flask on the Lord, and she anoints him. So what would God's view be on an event like that? He sees this woman, she has a flask, she breaks it, it's on Jesus, people think it's a waste. They say, could have been given to the poor. How does God view that woman's action? How would you say he views that? Huh? Yeah, he loved it. Yeah, he did. He loved it. And I love the verse. I think it is verse 8. So people are accusing her. And then in verse 8, the Lord steps in and then he says, she has done what she could. For God to say that about us at the end of our life, she has done what she could, or he has done what he could. Very precious that at the end of our life, we did what we could. We're limited, but we did everything we could for the Lord. Something really cool is, this will probably be relevant actually to most people in the room, I think the ladies outnumber us, is that when you die, and your body will be before the altar at your funeral, do you know what gospel they read? They read the gospel about this woman. At every female Coptic funeral, it is this woman who is read during your funeral service. And it's such a high compliment to you, because it's basically declaring before the church, the woman who has passed over to you, Lord, she loved you. And this is who this woman represents. This is who she was, a woman who loved Jesus. And that is what they read at the funeral of every Coptic female. You know what? I actually don't know. I actually don't know. Yeah, but it is, it's different for a woman. It's such a high compliment, actually. I would love it if that gospel was read at my funeral, to be honest. But. And the other thing is, I actually had this question a while back. When you listen to different things in the church for years and years and years, but you want to know finally where does it come from and how does this make sense and everything like that. I used to have this question, which was, when Abuna says before the commemoration of the saints, as this, O Lord, is the command of your only begotten Son that we share in the commemoration of your saints, and then he starts reciting all the names of the saints. I used to think to myself, where in the world did the Lord command us to commemorate the saints? Why does Abuna say that, as this is the command of your only begotten Son that we share in the commemoration of your saints? Does anyone know where to find that command in the Bible, or where that came from? So, there could be a reference, but the thing is that this one is very explicit, saying, as this, O Lord, is the command of your only begotten Son. So, we're looking at the Gospels. When did Jesus say that we commemorate the saints? Or remember them? I'll give you a hint. It's here. Can anyone spot and read out the verse? Yeah, verse 9. Yeah. Assuredly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her. So, from my reading at least, this is where we get that part in the liturgy from this woman. You see how much the Coptic church esteems this woman? Not only in the funeral, but also in every single liturgy. Sorry, girls, may God give you long life. Sorry if it's a bit bleak, but it's actually very joyful to end your life declaring, I love the Lord. There's no higher thing that we can do. So that's that point. God views from a viewpoint of love, and he's looking for love in us also. The next point is that God seeks faithfulness. So he is faithful, and he also seeks faithfulness. That's the way he views, that's the way he searches. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. Loyalty is a big deal with God. That he is number one in our life. That's the first of the 10 commandments. To have no other gods before me. Loyalty. I wish I was loyal like a dog. I wish. Because dogs are so loyal. I've heard a number of stories about dogs. Does anyone have a dog? All right, you got a dog. I'm sure you've probably experienced loyalty of a dog at some point. But no, you haven't? Okay. Okay. Wrong dog. No. You got a dog? Loyal? Loyal dog? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, loyal. Few stories of loyalty of Caleb I've heard, really. One was great. One was like this guy used to go to work and he would come back on the train, and then the dog would always wait for him, like at that appointed time, because he started to know the time the train arrived. And then the guy died, and then for 9 years the dog kept on going to the train station and waiting. Same time, 9 years. I've also heard of a dog who, after the owner died, the dog just stopped eating. Yeah, like such love, such faithfulness. We won't go through all of this because it takes a while, but the biblical expectation of us when it comes to faithfulness. Yeah. Does anyone want to guess, or summarize? Yeah, parable of the talents. Does anyone remember the numbers of talents that each person received? I feel like we're in an auction. This is good. All right, someone volunteer and then say all three numbers. Correct. That's good. That's excellent. And a talent, by the way, was worth heaps. So some people feel sorry, the poor guy only got one, But it was actually worth a lot. One talent was actually huge. And the thing about it is that God gives to each one according to his ability. So that's specifically mentioned in this parable. So he's not like, poor dude, he gave the other guy 5 and 1. Of course he buried it because he wants to protect the one. No, it's like God gave to each one according to their ability. And what he expects from us is to bear fruit, to do something with what he's given us. This is just a brief summary of the parable. So if you look in the ancient Christian commentary, it describes who is who. So the man traveling to the far country is God. He has the servants. And the talents represent the ability. So whatever thing that we've been given, whatever ability we've been given. And you see that bit how it says his goods in the second line? For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country. That man is God, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. It's always to remember that it's his. This is why he expects back fruit, that we did something with it. Because what's yours is not yours. What's yours was given by God. It's delivered his goods to them. This is what we received from him. And then we see again underlined is that it's according to our own ability. So we shouldn't look at what other people have, be like, if only I had that. Or why is she like this and I'm not like this? Or why has he got that and I don't have that? It's like, no, it's God. He has given you what he has given you, and he's given the other person what they have given him. And we're accountable for ourselves. We're not accountable for what someone else has. Yes? No, of course you have the right to ask many questions.
Why is it traditional saying that your talents from the
Yeah, so actually maybe something from John Chrysostom might help in this. All right, well, no, I'm actually so happy there's interaction. This is good. So is everyone familiar with the parable? Yeah, so we won't read it like word for word, so we'll continue. Yeah. So St. John Chrysostom basically says, everyone has a talent and can do something because your speech, your hands, your feet, your strength of body and mind and understanding are included in your talent. Now, this may not directly answer your question. So your question is separate to this, is that if your talent is hidden, it's not more so that I don't have any talents. Was that correct? Is that, yeah, that it's hidden. Yeah. The beauty about a hidden talent is that it can still multiply, but before the eyes of God, because nothing is secret from him. So for example, you look at someone like Pope Krolos. This man was just secret. Like somehow he lived a holy secret life even as the Pope. Like he continued living like a monk. And it's very rare. I don't know if any of us have ever heard one sermon from Pope Krolos. Like, I don't know. I haven't. He used to actually get his deacon, Saint Habib Gerges, to give talks. So Pope Krolos was hidden, and then he would put before the people Habib Gerges. So do we say that Pope Krolos, because his life was like in secret, did he bury what he had? No, he actually used it in the right way. So he lived this secret prayer life, but then it transformed the whole church visibly. And the Lord Jesus says that, to actually pray in secret. Prayer was what Pope Krolos used. And he didn't bury what he had. He simply thrived, but in secret. And then it was evident before all, of course, evident before the Lord. And he had such a humility. No, I'm Pope, I'm going to give every talk. No, he wasn't like that. I'm the Pope, but hey, Habib Gerges is really gifted at giving talks, so let's put him to give the sermons. In fact, he used what he had. He used his humility, he used his brain. Like St. John Chrysostom says, our understanding is included in our talent. If I understand someone can do something better than me, okay, let them use their gift for the glory of God. And maybe it's my position to encourage somebody to use their gift. That in and of itself is a talent. Barnabas, who was with Paul, you know what his name means? So Barnabas was one of the missionaries with St. Paul. His name literally means son of encouragement. So maybe for Barnabas, his talent was just to encourage Paul, the man who was at the forefront, the man who everybody saw. But that in and itself is a gift, the gift of being able to encourage others. I don't know if that answers your question. Continue on. Yeah, but I think also to take opportunities. So, like if you're asked to do a service, I think for a long time, I think it's time we sort of grow out of this. I'm not talking to anyone in particular because obviously I don't know how you guys respond when you're asked to do a service. But I think for a long time, it's been common that we're like, that sort of thing. But sometimes there's a need, like there's just, well, you're the only dude here, man. Like, just do it. We're the only girl. Like, we need someone to help out here. So I think it's responding. Yeah, we focus on our spiritual life. That's the most important thing, of course, that, we concentrate on our own holiness because we read in the Bible that without holiness, no one will see the Lord. So holiness is a big deal. Like, if we don't take holiness seriously, that's a dangerous thing. So yeah, we focus on our life. We focus on rejoicing in the Lord because He's risen. I love how we say He is risen, not, oh, Christ has rose, Christ arose. It's He is, like He is now alive, He is risen. It's very deliberate, the language of the church with that. So we focus on really trying to rejoice in the Lord and, yeah, using what we have And when opportunities present, we take them. Like, we take them to serve God. We can, of course, consult our confession father, see, Abuna, I've been asked to do this, what do you think? Should I take this on? What do you see about this as well, if we're confused about it? Does anyone else have anything to add, subtract from what was said? Yeah. But St. John Chrysostom's quote here is powerful, because I think a lot of the time, sometimes we might think, we don't have a talent, like someone else is really obviously gifted in something, and I don't have an obvious gift. But I love the way St. John Chrysostom says that your talent it's your speech, it's your hands, it's your feet, it's your body, it's your understanding. So, like, if someone is, I don't know, a kid is struggling to reach something on like a cupboard, like, well, God gave me height and a hand, so I use my talent. Like, it could be that simple. It's like, here you go, kid, like, it's so simple. What does burying the talent mean? So, St. Cyril of Alexandria, he was one of our early popes in the church, and this is what he said. This is what we don't want to do, because that is what the man with the one talent did, and God was, he was very stern with him. This is what we are not to do. What does it mean to bury the talent? St. Cyril says, for he buried, Jesus says, the talent given to him in the earth. He kept the gift hidden, making it unprofitable for others and useless for himself. So that is a good criteria to see whether or not we're using our talents. One is, with all that God has given me, am I benefiting other people? Question for reflection. Am I benefiting other people with what God has given me? And the other one is it useful for me? Is it allowing me to grow in my spiritual life? So to use a talent, we just reverse it. It's useful for me, it's allowing me to grow in Christ, and I'm benefiting other people at the same time. This is the way we know if we're using our talent. Everyone cool with that from St. Cyril? Yeah. Like, why use talents? We might just go around in a circle, because I really get sick of my voice, actually. So we might just, these are just reasons we use our talents. So we'll just do a slide each, and we might just go around. Me trying to avoid eye contact. So it has to go to the other one.
Am I reading it?
Yes, please.
As each one has received a gift, minister it to one another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. If anyone speaks, let him speak as the oracles of God. If anyone ministers, let him do it as with the ability which God supplies, that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom belong the glory and the dominion forever and ever.
Great. So that's the first one. It's commanded that we are to minister our gifts to one another. The next one.
It's fun.
Yeah, but it is more.
Ha 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 ha.
That's right. It's like when we have a gift and we use it, it's like, yeah, like it's fun.
Your gift is very nice.
Okay. Useful for yourself, fulfillment.
Yeah. I think so. Do you think it is fulfilling?
Yeah.
When you use a gift, I think so.
Is it wrong to do it?
Oh no, I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's great. Because when we feel fulfilled, it's not like, this is all on my own strength. Like when we're doing well in our spiritual life, something my friend taught me anyway. He's like, always remember why you're doing well. It's like, because of God. It's not yourself. And so when we feel fulfilled, it's like, I am fulfilled because God is very gracious and very kind to me. His kindness is what has allowed me to be fulfilled. It's a cause of thanksgiving. Yeah, it's good to feel fulfilled. It's great.
Master is coming to settle accounts. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. What you have is yours, but it's not yours.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, because using the gift is important because he gave it to us. And they're like settled accounts. Like when he went to that far country and came back, he wasn't just like, hey guys, how you doing? All good, enjoying life? And then just like everyone went off to their life. No, he's like, what did you do with what I gave you? You know, he's coming and seeing what did we do. Like it's serious. So it's good to keep that in mind. When what we have is not ours. Like if you're gifted at something, you might think it's your decision to say yes or no to doing the surface. God has given you that free will. Yes, you can say no, but at the same time, because the gift was given to you, you should really be asking God, should I say yes or no? Not just how do I feel. See what's coming. I want to do it. So he's coming to settle with us. He will expect us to use what he's given us. Sorry.
See life from God's view, seeking personal dialogue.
Thanks. You know, there's a really long bit coming up, so maybe hold the mic because there's many long parts coming out. This is the next part. So far we've gone through the way that God views. He views humanity from, do you remember the first one? Yeah, from a point of love. He is love, but because he is love as well, that's what he sees in humans. That's what he sees in us, that we love as well. And then the second point was he looks for faithfulness. He looks for us to use our talents, to be loyal to him. And the third way he views us is when we're in difficult situations, which is the life of any human being in the world. If you live long enough, you're going to go through a difficult situation. What does he seek in those times? And what we're about to read is part of the story of Job. The guy went through like as all his kids died and property and it's a horrible, horrible thing that happened to him. And you know how if you ever talk to someone or something like, I hate my life, like that? Job is the most poetic person in the world to describe how much he hated his life. So poetic. So we're about to read his poetry on how much he hates his life. But then hopefully we learn something out of it as well. Sorry. I'm going to get to it. I do want to highlight though, like, with the guys that we're going to read about, I really believe that they're like a dream team of righteous people. So we're going to read about Job. God said of him, he's a blameless and upright man, and that there's none like him on the earth. They were his own words. Can you imagine God saying that about you? There is no one like you on the earth. Big deal, right? That's a righteous man. And then Elijah, he's like spiritual powerhouse. He prays for fire, fire comes down. He prays for rain, rain comes down. He's like the weatherman, the best weatherman. His prayers are so powerful. And then David was a man, of course, probably the highest compliment in the whole Bible, a man after God's own heart. So these are the guys that we're going to read about, and we see what did they do when they were low, because they did have low times. What can we learn, and what does God seek from us in times like that? Sorry for the long introduction. You may now read. Please read. Go for it. Oh yeah, the whole thing.
Okay.
Oh, there's more. Trust me. This is just warming up.
Could Job always see from God's view? Job chapter 3, Job deplores his birth. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job spoke and said, May the day perish on which I was born, and the night in which it was said, A male child is conceived. May that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor the light shine upon it. May darkness and the shadow of death claim it. May a cloud settle on it. May the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, may darkness seize it. May it not rejoice among the days of the year. May it not come unto the number of months. O Oh, may that night be barren. May no joy shout come into it. May those curse it who curse the day. Those who are ready to arouse Leviathan. May the stars of the morning be dark. May took for light but have none. May not see the dawning of the day because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide sorrow from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb? Why did the knees receive me, or why the breasts that I should nurse?
For now I have lain still and been quiet. I would have been asleep, that I would have been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth, who built ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not hidden like a stillborn child? I like infants who never saw light. Therefore the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners rest together. They do not hear the voice of the oppressor. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of the soul? Who long for death but it does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures? Who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. I am not at ease, nor I am quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes.
Hard to put into words how he describes the day he was born, but I think it's probably an understatement to say he hated his life. So this is the man who God says that he's a blameless and upright man, none like him on the earth. Then, I think we learn a lesson from Job. So try to see in this passage, what does Job do that is good? What does he do that is good? So it's in here. So if someone can read this page.
Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I'll speak in the anguish of my spirit. I'll complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a sea serpent that you set a guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint. Then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my body. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone, for my days are but a breath. What is man that you should exalt him, that you should set your heart on him, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment? How long will you not look away from me and let me alone till I swallow my saliva? Have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you set me as your target, so that I am a burden to myself? Why then do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I will lie down in the dust, and you will seek me diligently, but I will no longer be.
Yeah, he's had enough, right? Will you not look away from me? Let me alone till I swallow my saliva. I just want to swallow, sleep. Let me just suffering, really bad suffering. But there is something that's really great that he does here. I don't know if anyone sort of picked it out, but feel free to have a guess. Yeah, that's right. So in the beginning, he says, I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. And then he's directly speaking to God. He's questioning, am I a sea or a sea serpent that you set a guard over me? And then he continues. And so it's one of the most precious lessons that we learn in moments of suffering, is that we don't have to mask it. Like, we still be ourselves. If we're bitter of soul, then we are ourselves. We're bitter of soul. But we're bitter of soul before the Lord. So, be yourself, but deliberately before God. Deliberately. Because in times of trouble, it's very easy to reduce attendance at church, very easy to reduce prayer, to stop reading the Bible, to distance ourselves from church friends, from a confession father. But Job was deliberate. He deliberately complained to God. And I was just listening to this very sweet story of a church leader whose son had pretty much died, or was very, very ill. I think he was in a coma. And this particular church leader, he was really bitter. And his prayer to God was basically, is this how you treat those who serve you? You take away their children, that sort of thing. It was like a really impolite prayer, so to speak. And yet God answered that prayer. The son came back, and I still remember listening to him say, God answered that prayer, that irreverent prayer he answered. But yeah, he did. Because what happened is that the boy actually had, it was like a vision, so to speak, or he heard from Christ. This is the way the story goes, that he said, you have to go back. Because the boy didn't want to go back. He saw, the other side, and he didn't want to go back. But from what the boy describes, he says, no, you have to go back because your dad prayed. And I'm answering his prayer. And so he was very humbled. The father was very humbled because the prayer was so irreverent. It was just very rash. It wasn't the way that we used to pray to God. But it's very biblical. Very, very biblical. It's a Job-style prayer, and God hears those prayers. So we be ourselves, but deliberately in front of God. For the sake of time, we may skip over Elijah. But fair enough, or enough to say that he says himself, if you see in the green, he tells God it is enough. He's suffering. Someone is after his life to kill him, Elijah. And then he says, it is enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than my fathers. He had enough. And he says that. He says, it is enough. But you read on in the story, God wasn't finished with him. He had more work for Elijah to do, and Elijah did it. So there's times where we feel like it's enough. I've had enough. But God still has something for us to do. He still has joy in store as well for us, which we should never lose sight of. He was himself as well in front of God. And then if someone could read this, this is very familiar to all of us, I'm sure, from the book of Hours, the Egbeah. But David, the man after God's own heart, could David always see life from God's view? Because that's the whole aim of the talk tonight, see life from God's view. I want to sort of just encourage by saying, even the greatest of holy people didn't always see life from God's view. And so, to be honest, I get greatly encouraged from people's failures. It might sound bad, but in particular, great people's failures, I get really inspired by, because it's a reminder. It's this person's the best in the world at this thing, and yet they failed. Wow, there's hope for all of us. I still remember a really nice man I work with. A lot of mission work he did in Africa as a doctor. And I still remember we were celebrating his 80th birthday at the clinic. And he comes up to me. It was one of the most inspiring things I've ever heard. He told me, there are many people who died because of me. And I was like, wow. It actually, I was so inspired by that. The man's humility on his birthday when everyone is elevating him, and he's got that humility to say, I've tried to serve, and he did. Oh my goodness, he wasn't even a specialist, in obstetrics and gynecology, but he delivered 1,000 babies, I think, literally in Africa, because he was the only doctor there to do it. But he also like just had this very contrite moment where he told this little insignificant kid, you know, this guy's 80, and he told me, he's like, there are many people who died because of me. Of course that wasn't his intention, but it's like, wow, like, you're such a great man, and yet, like, you feel burdened, you know, after all these years because of that. It's amazing. Anyway, if someone could read this psalm.
How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long will my enemies be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say I prevailed against him. Let those who drop on me rejoice when I am moved.
So David couldn't always see from God's view. He was asking, how long, O Lord, are you going to forget me forever, all this? But again, just like Elijah was honest before God, he said, Lord, it's enough. Just like Job was honest and he had that bitter prayer, but he was deliberately putting himself before God. David as well does the same thing. He deliberately puts himself in front of God. So, what did they all have in common? Yeah, they were all honest in their prayers to God. We be who we are, but in front of God, deliberately. Because if we're not deliberately putting ourselves in front of God, we tend to go away from Him. I really feel like we should just close because, you know, it's taking, you know, a lot of your time and such. So we'll just skip to the last slides. This is the second to last slide, but it's basically, if we can't always see life from God's view, then we're in good company. Like the righteous dream team couldn't always see God's plan and the way that He viewed. And so we always have hope. Like we never lose hope, because He is risen and He is love. And just the take-home points, if we summarize, is that God's view is a view of love. He is love, and so He views humanity with love, but also expects to see love in us. Like Pope Shenouda said, if any action far from love is far from God. To be faithful with what He's entrusted us with, He's given us the ability to see, to speak, to get things from the cupboard for kids, and whatever other special gifts that He's given us, He expects us to use it. And that He's seeking a personal dialogue, which is really cool, because there's no excuse. If we're in a spiritual high, He's seeking that, you know, personal relationship, thanksgiving, joy. If we're in a spiritual low, He's still seeking that spiritual and deep and personal dialogue, even if it's bitter. He's still seeking that. And so it's nice, whichever point we are in life, on this roller coaster we ride, we're always close to God. Always. We can always be close to God. Glory be to God. Amen.